am attorney bathan-lasco. This is my virtual classroom. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this channel, I shall aim to simplify the law. I will discuss concepts and principles of law in under 10 minutes. Hi again, everyone. If you have watched my other videos where I discussed about the steps of creating a corporation, and there's also another video where I talked about the Articles of Incorporation, I will put down the links below so you can also watch those videos. This video, I want us to talk about what are the grounds for when your Securities and Exchange Commission would disapprove the Articles of Incorporation that you have submitted to them, or when the SEC would disapprove the amended Articles of Incorporation. You can actually find the grounds for disapproval by the SEC under Section 16 of the Corporation Code. Section 16 would tell you that your Securities and Exchange Commission may disapprove your registration for incorporation if you are not compliant with the law. And in another video, I have also already discussed what should be the contents in your Articles of Incorporation, and that you must substantially comply with the requirements provided under your revised corporation code, such that if the SEC finds that you have not substantially complied with all the matters mentioned under Section 13, then the SEC can actually disapprove your Articles of Incorporation. However, your Section 16 will also tell you that before the SEC can outright disapprove the Articles of Incorporation or the amended Articles of Incorporation, they must give ample time for the incorporators to make the changes. So, for example, you have here a corporation, and when they made the Articles of Incorporation, they had 16 incorporators. And remember that your revised corporation code limits the incorporators only to a maximum of 15. So you have not now followed what is required by law. So, once you submit it to the Securities and Exchange Commission, and then they find that your incorporators, the number of your incorporators is more than what is allowed by law, then they can give you time to change what you have failed to comply with the law before they can disapprove your Articles of Incorporation. Now, why do I say that you are being given reasonable time to make the changes? Because that is provided for under the first paragraph of Section 16. Let's read the first paragraph. It states, "The Commission may disapprove the Articles of Incorporation or any amendment thereto if the same is not compliant with the requirements of this code, provided that the Commission shall give the incorporators, directors, trustees, or officers a reasonable time from receipt of the disapproval within which to modify the objectionable portions of the articles or amendment." So that is the first paragraph of your Section 16, which tells you that the corporation, or rather the incorporators, the directors, trustees, or officers are actually given a reasonable time to modify the objectionable portions. So apart from the example that I gave earlier, what are the grounds for disapproval of your Articles of Incorporation or your amendment to the Articles of Incorporation? We find that under the second paragraph of Section 16. Let's read the second paragraph, where there is an enumeration now of the grounds. It provides, the following are grounds for such disapproval. A, the Articles of Incorporation or any amendment thereto is not substantially in accordance with the form prescribed therein. B, that the purpose or purposes of the corporation are patently unconstitutional, illegal, immoral, or contrary to government rules and regulations. C, the certification concerning the amount of capital stock subscribed and or paid is false. And D, the required percentage of Filipino ownership of the capital stock under existing laws or the Constitution has not been complied with. The first example that I gave you is an example of the first ground, where there is no substantial compliance of what is required under Section 13 and 14 of your revised corporation code. Now, let's go to the second ground. And the second ground is when the purpose or the purposes of the corporation is patently illegal or unconstitutional. So, for example, what is written as a primary purpose is to sell dangerous and unregulated drugs. So clearly that is patently illegal. And so your Securities and Exchange Commission will have to disapprove the registration of the Articles of Incorporation because it is patently illegal. The third ground is when your Securities and Exchange Commission will find out that the certification of the amount of capital stock subscribed and are paid for is false. Because remember that the Articles of Incorporation, not only is it simply signed by the incorporators, but there is an acknowledgement there that everything that you have written must be true and correct. That's why it is notarized. And so if there are any false information there and your SEC finds out about it, that is a ground for disapproval. Lastly, the fourth ground of disapproval of the Articles of Incorporation would be when you have failed to comply with the percentage of Filipino ownership requirement. So, for example, in the Articles of Incorporation, you have placed there that the purpose of the business is to engage in mass media. And yet, when the Securities and Exchange Commission will now look into your Articles of Incorporation, they see there that there is an incorporator who is not a Filipino citizen. Now, remember that your Constitution requires that for mass media, it must be wholly owned by Filipino citizens, meaning 100% must be Filipino citizens. So, if they see that you have not complied with the percentage of Filipino ownership, then they can disapprove your Articles of Incorporation. Another example, for example, educational corporations. The primary purpose is education. And then again, when they look at your incorporators, they see there that more than 40% are not Filipino citizens. And your Constitution requires that for educational corporations, it must be owned by at least 60% of Filipino citizens. So having more than 40% foreigners, that would already be violating the minimum Filipino percentage of ownership requirement. So that can be a ground to disapprove your Articles of Incorporation. Now, let's look into the last paragraph of Section 16. It reads, no Articles of Incorporation or amendment to Articles of Incorporation of banks, banking and quasi-banking institutions, pre-need, insurance and trust companies, NSSLAs, pawn shops, and other financial intermediaries shall be approved by the Commission unless accompanied by a favorable recommendation of the appropriate government agency to the effect that such articles or amendment is in accordance with law. Now, those types of corporations that are enumerated under the last paragraph of Section 16, these are corporations vested with public interest. And therefore, it needs a favorable recommendation by the appropriate government agency, because that appropriate government agency will have to look into the corporation as to whether they have complied with all the requirements of law. And that would also now be made as basis for your Securities and Exchange Commission if they have complied with particular laws that are applicable to these corporations, as well as looking into whether these corporations have also complied with the revised corporation code. So that is it for this video. That is everything that you need to know under Section 16 of your revised corporation code. I hope again you have learned something new in this video, and I will see you in the next. So if you find this video helpful, please click like, subscribe, and that notification bell so that you will be notified of new video uploads. Thank you for watching. See you next time in MBL Classroom.